It's not often that one can return to a pillar of one's childhood and say that it is still good, even without the lens of nostalgia skewing one's opinion, and I don't think I can say I was able to do that when I recently rewatched the movie Bedknobs and Broomsticks on an old VHS tape that we had saved this film on. P.S. I am about to summarize the plot of this movie, which will include a massive amount of spoilers. Following that, I'm going to talk about individual parts of the movie, which will include more spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie and you think it sounds like something you would want to do, then I suggest that you find some way to watch this movie and then come back and hear my thoughts on this bad boy. This movie, in the very likely case that you haven't heard of it, was directed by Robert Stevenson, the director of Mary Poppins and The Love Bug. It stars Angela Lansbury as Eglantine Price, a woman studying witchcraft via a male correspondence course with Professor Emilius Brown. She is studying witchcraft in hopes of ending World War II. Naturally, she can't do this very publicly because during the 1940s, people wouldn't have been very receptive to having someone practice witchcraft, even if it was to help defeat the Nazis. Miss Price is then told that she has to take in 3 children who were moved out of London to protect them from the Blitzkrieg. She doesn't want to take them in, but by law she has no choice. The kids quickly find out that she's a witch, and they all come to an agreement that they get to have one of her spells, the traveling spell to be precise, and they won't tell anyone that she's a witch. They use this spell to find Emilius Brown because he would not be sending her the final lesson in the witchcraft correspondence course. They find him, and not only is Brown a fraud, but all of the spells that he has sent Miss Price came from an ancient book written by a sorcerer called Astaroth. The final spell is not included in the book, so then everyone, including Mr. Brown, go to various places looking for the spell that Miss Price is looking for, the spell of substitutionary locomotion. They go to a shady kind of flea market and an island with talking animals before finding out that they had the spell the whole time, literally speaking, not in a poetic kind of way like in The Wizard of Oz. Then the movie ends with a small regiment of Nazis invading the area for some reason, and Miss Price has to use the final spell that they've been looking for to animate non-animate objects to fight against the Nazis. The movie ends with most of Miss Price's house destroyed, including all of her spells and witch-related paraphernalia. She decides she is not going to pursue being a witch, and Mr. Brown decides to go join the army. Cue credits. First, I want to say, the acting in this movie is pretty decent for the most part. You've got Angela Lansbury doing a pretty good job going from someone who doesn't do well around kids to actually liking the kids, and when the post office woman comes to say that the kids don't have to stay with Miss Price anymore, I actually buy that she doesn't want them to leave. And even the kids are pretty good too. They may be guilty of overacting here and there, but what kid isn't? These kids are actually better at acting than some adults in more recent movies, so that's something going for them. And David Tomlinson does pretty great also. He does a good job playing a con man because even though I know that he is a fraud, he is still incredibly charming, and it is nearly impossible for me to hate him when I know that he's probably spent most of his adult life cheating other people. And when he starts acting more heroic for the benefit of Miss Price and the kids, I believe that also. He's a fine actor, and watching this movie makes me want to see more stuff that he's been in. And I usually don't watch a movie just for the appearance of an actor, even one that I like, so that's mighty strong words coming from me. But the decent to wonderful acting is about the only place that I actually enjoyed this movie, I'm afraid. The plot is virtually non-existent if we're being honest. The whole movie is this group of characters looking for someone, and then when that doesn't work out, they start looking for something, and then when that doesn't work out, they start looking for another something, etc. When it finally seems like they've achieved what they've spent 7/10 of the movie trying to do, the movie forces an out-of-nowhere action scene because it needs to find some way to end the movie, and there wasn't anything organically planted in how this movie would end in the collection of scenes with the characters looking for stuff. It almost sounds unfair for me to say this, but this movie is less of an actual cohesive movie and more just a collection of goofy skits all featuring the same characters. After we've set up our characters, we spend an unholy amount of time at Portobello Road basically wasting time. We watch the vendors and customers of this street flea market sing about Portobello Road, but it doesn't further the plot in any way. Then we spend what felt like 5 minutes watching these unimportant background characters dance. Since I know this scene does not actually serve a purpose other than drawing out the length of the film, I'm assuming director Robert Stevenson had a friend who would do choreography for movies, so he wrote this pointless waste of time to give his friend something to do. And then after Portobello Road, we spend more time watching stuff that doesn't really serve the story in any way. This time, it's Professor Brown volunteering to be a referee in an American soccer match, which this film features entirely British actors and characters, so I don't know why they didn't just call it football, since that's what it's called called outside of America, and for that matter, these animals had been isolated for humanity for at least a couple of hundred years, so I'm not even sure how they found out about soccer in the first place. But this scene is just completely pointless. We spend what feels like 5 minutes watching these cartoon animals try to play soccer, very badly mind you, and Mr. Brown get continually beaten as he is apparently dumb enough to stand in the middle of the field where these charging animals are playing soccer. It isn't until after this colossal waste of time that Brown gets the MacGuffin that they are looking for, and even then that did not matter because it would not travel with them back to the air quotes real world. I'm not even kidding, about a third of this movie is just there to kill time, because during that entire third of the movie they have the spell that they are looking for, but they don't, use their brains at any point during this section of the movie. I think a quick and easy way to say exactly what I don't like about this movie is that it's all style and very little substance. It feels like the people making this movie didn't really care if the story was threadbare and non-existent in places. As long as the songs were catchy and they could show off the latest techniques used to integrate animation with real life, which is what Stevenson did in the Mary Poppins movie as well, it didn't really matter if there wasn't a story here. I think this movie is the grandfather to movies like just about anything by Tim Burton or some of the movies by James Cameron. If Robert Stevenson was around today, he would be doing the exact same thing now. It wouldn't necessarily be snazzy dance numbers and catchy songs, but rather dazzling special effects to distract you from a non-existent plot, which is sort of what he does here. I don't want to hate this movie as much as it sounds like I do. Like I said, I grew up watching this movie. I hadn't seen it for maybe 10 years when I recently wanted to watch it again, and I took no joy from realizing that this movie does not hold up. I did have a lot of fun watching it, but that was mostly because this movie falls somewhere between so bad it's good and just goofy meant to be silly fare that was quite common in the late 60s, early 70s. But this is not a movie that I would actually suggest someone else watch because it just does not have any substance to it. And that's unfortunate. It makes me think that for the most part, what happens in childhood needs to stay in childhood, at least in terms of the movies that I watched back then and am wondering if I should watch now. So that's how I felt about this movie. What about you guys? Have you seen it? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. And what did you think of my video review? Even if you did not like my video, let me know what went wrong here in the comments below, and I will do my very best to change that in the future to improve my channel. Until then, I will be doing some other kind of video in the nearest future, so I hope you guys come to check that out then. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.